All right, so that being said, we have our genies, genetics, 3 genes that if you could choose, what would you have here? Just hopefully it turned those in. Let's see what we got here. There it is. All right, so let's just go over some. I'll go over some real quick and then I'll describe it. So, with some degree of certainty, parents can pick sex of their child. Within the next 25, 30 years, it is expected that parents will be able to pick the components of their child like a Subway sandwich line, adding and deleting certain physical and mental characteristics. Is that a good idea? Is that a good idea? What do you think? Sarah, what do you think? Why not?
Were we supposed to answer that question?
No, it was more just.
Oh, all right. Well, I would say it would be a good thing. I think for more like ethical reasons, like that would almost be like dystopian. Like because everyone would obviously choose to make their children perfect, and that would be like I don't know. That kind of destroys like genetic variation and like a dominance hierarchy and all that.
That's true.
You know what I mean? So that'd be kind of wacky. I don't really know. How would like social levels and stuff? You know, if you could choose everybody to be as intelligent as they possibly could, or as like physically superior, or like all that, like how would that change like every social?
It could have a huge impact, yeah, on every aspect of life, right? Especially with athletics, if these people were just making these superior beings on the athletic fields, I guess it'd be fun to watch, right?
Yeah,
I guess, or like the average Joe is watching who didn't get their genetic makeup the way they wanted. It's like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. Like every play is like a highlight reel in a way. So for entertainment purposes, I guess it would be pretty cool. But yeah, like you said, it could definitely affect everything. Social, yeah, like you meant with social groups. How this is going to maybe create some issues with how we understand, especially with, like you said, if everybody's intelligent to their max intelligence, how does that affect the way we study, the way we understand material, the way we test people and assess people, and maybe acceptance into colleges or universities? Like, how do we go from there? Or where do we go from there? There's many different other things that we can maybe talk about as well. Or maybe for the advancements of different sciences to help benefit people would be a benefit. But if we continue to maybe alter our offspring like this, maybe something else might emerge. Maybe there's another virus or disease that could, come about with this genetic manipulation that we don't have an answer to.
Oh, yeah, that would be a thing too.
Like a mutation.
Everybody is like the same.
Yeah.
Like that's the reason. Okay, I don't know if I'm getting too like sciencey. We talked about it in bio. It's like the genetic variation is needed. So things like one virus or a disease would wipe the entire population out. So
exactly.
Mutation is necessary for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly, right? So if everybody's immune system's the same, then like you said, if a virus or any type of disease comes about and just wipes out the whole population, there's no question to it, there's no answer to it, like you said. It's where we go. Kayla, what do you think? Yeah, the first one. You weren't supposed to answer it really, but I kind of like go over it.
This is not.
You don't think it's a good idea? Just kind of the reasons why we just talked about there. Okay. Yeah. Anything else to add, or are you good? No, not really. Hannah, what do you think? You said no. Okay. All right. So yeah, there's many different reasons behind it why maybe it's not a good idea, but heck, entertainment. I'm all about it. Yeah, get some guys doing backflips off the top ropes in a wrestling match. No, I'm just kidding. I refer it back to wrestling. All right, so after reading the handout, answer the following questions. So the genies, choosing your child's genes. Okay, I thought that was a pretty interesting article, especially with sports and how many people would probably alter their offspring to be really athletic somehow. If they're strong, if they're agile, if they're just have heightened senses and reactions. I'm sure there would be a lot of things that people would alter for their children to be very successful with sports. Okay, so after reading the handout, answer the following questions. 1. If you could select 3 genetic traits for your child, what would they be? 2. If you knew you were a possible carrier for a genetic disorder, would you want to be tested before having children? Why or why not? And 3. Develop an argument supporting genetic manipulation and an argument against genetic manipulation. So I get it. I mean, with this assignment, I wanted you to try to maybe think about others, depending if people obviously had or known anybody that kind of went through some of these things, and just kind of think clear about it, and let's not try to, I guess you say, hurt someone's feelings about this assignment. That's kind of where I was getting at with that. So let's start over here, Hannah. So if you could select 3 genetic traits for your child, what would they be? What would you pick?
I didn't inherit traits about like your eye color or whatever. You didn't have that like matching, like stuff that matches from your like mom and dad. Then you wouldn't really like, to know somebody that's my kid. They wouldn't see any resemblance.
Okay, so you want like pretty much, obviously, those traits that you would definitely pick out that that's your kid. Okay, all right. So like hair color, eye color, height, you name it. All right. What else?
I think I don't know why I have physical issues.
Oh boy.
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Physical issues.
Oh no.
But
No, my.
that's the only one I have.
Okay.
It's like the highest level spike.
Yeah. I don't want my kids to be good at anything here. All right. So what do you have for 2 then? Oh, you didn't fill it out. Oh. Oh. All right, Michaela, you're up. What do you have for 1 here? What 3 genetic traits would you choose here? What would they be? Okay.
So I would want them to be athletic, have blue eyes.
Oh, you want freckles? Why freckles? Oh, okay. Blue eyes just because you like them? Yeah. All right. Okay. And then physical attributes, right? So that they could be just an athletic specimen. You want to be a pro or like a professional player, athlete, or something like that? Yeah. Okay. That'd be cool. That'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm sure TC would love that too, huh? Yeah, go and play for the Buffalo Bills. I'm just kidding. All right, so 2, what do you have for 2? So if you knew you were a possible carrier for genetic disorder, would you want to be tested before having children? Why or why not? What do you think? What's that?
Should I read?
Yeah, go ahead.
If I knew I was a possible carrier for a genetic, I want to be tested. I get tested to see if there is a serious genetic disorder. One reason why is because possibly a child's for example, sickle cell anemia is very serious. Another reason why is that I want to find out so we can treat the disorder. Genetic disorders are not curable. I think it's very important to see if you are a carrier of any.
All right, good job. Yeah, so you would definitely get tested then to make sure that your child doesn't have any types of issues when they grow up. And like you mentioned, the sickle cell, that's definitely something that is obviously could be problematic for a child's life. And yeah, so you bring up a good point. Good job. Good job. All right, 3, develop an argument supporting genetic manipulation and an argument against it. So what do you have for going with it? That kind of works for number 2, right? You want to try to prevent any type of harm from your child if, obviously if they have a genetic disorder. But what else do you have for the 3? Yeah.
Genetic manipulation can really change a child and allow them to be able to discern. It can help prevent genetic disorders. For example, cystic fibrosis can be completely wiped out by genetics. You can get rid of illnesses in young and upward. A lot of women decide to avoid children. This can help children be strong. It can also help children, which means they can reverse some
basic reasons for why genetic manipulation is very second.
Yeah, go ahead.
It can also be very unethical. Some religions, they argue it's going if they have. Some also believe that disease reason to keep the earth. There may be a chance it can lead to disease. If you wipe out one genetic, another question asked is if genetic manipulation. There are many scientists that are using genetic manipulation for good reasons, but there can also there can be negative side effects. And still wonder if
Yeah, good job, right? Good job. So kind of hit on some of those key parts that we mentioned earlier with, obviously maybe a variant of a mutation of a disease or a virus that could maybe come about, and with all this genetic manipulation. And I'm glad you mentioned religion, right? Religion as well, okay, and how it kind of goes against what God intended us to be and what we had to fight through, and kind of our mentality moving forward. If we have, and we're born with some of these traits. All right, good job, good work. All right, Sarah, what do you have for number one?
I said I'd choose intelligence, tall, height, and
Yeah, that was one of mine too. Height, high metabolism.
yeah.
Okay, all right, good. Yeah, so you wanted to make sure that they're always fit, and that they, I guess, don't become overweight, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, and intelligence you had.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I guess it's just like manifesting. I don't know. That's kind of weird. Like I feel like if you're taking your kids' genes, it's almost like what you wish you were, but you're making them that.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like when I was kind of thinking about that, isn't that kind of the traits you want?
Mm-hmm.
You're giving.
Yeah, it is. It is it's really weird. That's why I like this assignment. It's like, oh, what would you choose? How would you choose it? Why would you do it? What could maybe result from it? And reminds me of Spider-Man's making his suit, like in that one Spider-Man movie. It's like, oh yeah, I want this, I want that, I want this. That's pretty neat. All right, so 2, if you knew you were a possible carrier for genetic disorder, would you want to be tested before having children? Why or why not?
I said if I was suspicious of being a carrier of genetic disorder, I would see before having children. I just brought that up because we talked about that in bio.
Yeah.
I don't think it was in the article, but like I think warning signs would be the history of genetic disorder in my family, my husband's family. Warning signs of myself and my significant other being a carrier existed. And I would visit a genetic counselor to test and see my allele sequence on that gene that determines that disorder to verify that I am or am not a carrier. If I'm a carrier, the genetic counselor would talk me through the chance of my child having the disorder and the potential danger of passing it on to my child. I would do this because if I could prevent my future child from having a life-threatening disease, I'd rather adopt and spare a child from living with a lifelong genetic disorder such as Huntington's or cystic fibrosis.
All right, that's a good response. Good job. So you're not saying that you're for it really, but you're saying that, you know what, I'd rather try to avoid that type of, I guess, problem, right? So that your child doesn't have to live through those issues, and maybe adopt. Yeah, that's a good response. I've yet to.
I like what Michaela said too. I kind of like the degree of the genetic disorder,
Mm-hmm.
like Huntington's disease is like early death. Like
Yeah.
you know that your kid's gonna die really early versus like, well, I don't know. I mean, she mentioned sickle cell. I said like cystic fibrosis, which is like lungs and all the mucus in them all the time. It's like, I guess I didn't consider that, but that would be something.
Yeah.
Which like observing how it would be useful to look at it and then walk through
Mm-hmm.
whether or not. So.
Yeah, there used to be there was a child at Tri Valley. He had progeria, and he had that aging. It's an aging disease, and he was very inspirational, a great kid, and the whole community kind of went behind him. And he was in the Spikes organization in his baseball right outside of. It's right actually in State College. It's right next to Beaver Stadium. St. Louis Cardinals, the Phillies. for some reason, so he actually liked the Phillies. They won a World Series, and then the Phillies started to stink a little bit, so he jumped sides to the Cardinals. I'm like, oh, you can't do that. He's like, oh, yeah. But he's just a little kid, and just how inspirational he was and how much of an impact he had on everybody. It's like, hey, live your life to the fullest because it goes by pretty quick. And for him, unfortunately, his life was really just at a fast pace. He had the body of like an 85-year-old man at 11 years old. It was just this rare genetic disorder, and it was unfortunate. But like I said, his impact, his life on everybody around him was just huge. And like I said, maybe if we can solve some of these issues before it happened, that would be great. At the same time, that experience, that impact that he had on everybody's life was just so, I guess, say mountainous, right? It was so larger than life, and I have a picture with him. He's an awesome kid, and was an awesome kid, and it's such a great story behind it. And these types of things, like I said before, that's why I want to be a little sensitive about some of the writing and responses that you might have, but just his impact, especially on everybody's life, was just it was good. All right, so 3, develop an argument supporting genetic manipulation and an argument against genetic manipulation. What do you have for 3 then, Sarah?
I said genetic manipulation would be helpful in ways. Firstly, it would allow for the prevention of life-threatening genetic disorders by allowing the alteration of genotype for genes that encode. This would eradicate the need for genetic counseling and would prevent issues with debating on having your own biological child with the risk of them having a disorder versus getting an abortion or adopting children. It would also allow for genotypic alterations that would make the human population more evolved and more fit to our environments. We as a human race could be more biologically superior as a whole if we could choose our children's genotype through genetic manipulation. However, genetic manipulation can also be detrimental in many ways. Firstly, the ethical aspect comes into notice. We are not meant to be able to program ourselves to be better or worse because it destroys the entire social hierarchy of competence and otherwise. Society would turn into a Harrison Bergeron like dystopia because people would obviously manipulate their children's genotypes to be as advanced and perfect as possible if given a choice. Also, the cost could be a potential issue. Yes, being able to manipulate your child's genes to prevent them from having a life-threatening disorder is great, but it would likely be an expensive procedure that most people cannot afford, making it a luxury more than a legitimate option, unless insurance companies offer to pay for something like that.
Awesome, good job, good job. Yeah, so it definitely could bring out a lot of issues and a lot of problems if maybe people were able to just choose and pick and choose what genes and traits that their children would have. Kind of just summarizes everything like what we just talked about in Jurassic Park. Yeah, everybody wanted to see dinosaurs, but we all know how that played out. People getting eaten and everything. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. It's terrible. Yeah, so I always like bringing Jurassic Park into this towards the end since it's interesting. It's like, oh, should we bring back these dinosaurs? It'd be like a zoo. It'd be awesome. But watching a movie, oh man, these dinosaurs starting eating people, and it's really not a great thing to do. Maybe we should have just left it the way it was and just read them in a book rather than actually bring them to life. All right. Okay. I feel like we have the science to do that nowadays. It's really scary. Really scary. Okay, so vocab. We're just going to move on today since we have short time. Just want to talk about, chromosomes, genes with you, kind of move through that pretty quick, the evolutionary psychology. And then tomorrow we're going to get into neurons. Neurons. So we're going to talk about the label and firing of the neuron. And we'll probably have a quiz Friday on it. Okay. So on the neuron, I want you to know different parts of it. And, obviously the functions of these parts. So we'll get to that more tomorrow, though. And how that relates to flushing a toilet. How weird is that? How weird is that? All right, so with the rule of evolution. Okay, rule of evolution. So we went over this a lot in chapter 1 and how this kind of fits in with biopsychology, especially with the workings of the brain, the functions of the brain, and how maybe over time we evolved to communicate with others, to fit in an environment where we can survive and obviously thrive in that environment. So different types of traits, okay, become more prevalent, especially with our ability to survive in these areas. It's kind of, and that theory gets brought up a lot within psychology. And one of the main arguments with evolutionary psychology is really nature versus nurture. Okay, do we inherit these traits? Do we learn over time? Okay, that's kind of the big argument here with evolutionary psychology. And I should have put the bell ringer up first. I apologize. I'll put it up at the end. Does that sound good? Okay. So natural selection. We already know what natural selection is. You know how these traits obviously became prevalent over time, and how these dominant traits survive. And how they become, like I said, more prevalent as generations move on, and how we better fit within society. It just seems more and more that people were taller, they're larger than what they were back in, obviously, back in revolutionary times. These men were pretty short. Heck, I'm 5'6", 5'7" yet, so I didn't get that trait just yet. But it's just interesting knowing about some of these people over time, how these traits become more prevalent and appear in these people. It's funny, like the Vikings, they talk about the Vikings, the average height of a Viking was like 5'5", 5'4". I think that's pretty interesting to think about. It's like, oh my gosh, we think of Vikings as just big, huge, tall dudes, creating havoc and just like merciless, and they're just such a devastating character. But realistically, they're pretty short. Can you imagine this like little dwarf running around? Oh, yeah. But I think that's interesting to talk about, especially how these traits kind of over time, appear. All right. So there was a thing. So misconceptions about evolution. Number one, Darwin said humans come from monkeys. In reality, it suggests that he had a common ancestor millions of years ago. Right? That's one misconception. It's like, oh, we didn't actually evolve from chimpanzees, from monkeys, but we had a common ancestor. Number two, behavior can alter heredity. So people didn't start growing bigger brains so they could communicate with language, but people who had bigger brains and could communicate had an easier time surviving. So that trait over time obviously became more dominant, where people could communicate and think rationally and schedule a set objectives and understand the world around them and relate experiences to memories. Okay, so those are two misconceptions about evolution that many people don't think about too much. Really just kind of forget about those two parts. There's a funny skit on South Park, which I'm not going to play since it's a little weird and it's not appropriate for school, but he says, Mr. Garrison is like, oh, you're the offspring of a monkey, fish, frog, and two chimpanzees or something like, or two monkeys. And it's like, it's ridiculous, his skit. It's actually hilarious, but I'm not going to play. You guys can look it up on your own. Maybe look the clean version up of it. Sarah, do you know what I'm talking about? Do you? Okay. That part cracks me up. So, with evolution becoming accepted theory, the majority of scientists recognize evolution as a valid theory for more than a century. Okay. One of the big, I guess, challenges that many psychologists have with it is the nature versus nurture aspect, like I mentioned before. And this was going to be your bell ringer, but I'll show it towards the end of the chapter here with this. But with nature versus nurture, it's like, what do we learn? Do we learn different things and different concepts and how to live and survive in our environment? Or are we just born with these innate abilities, with these inherited abilities? Okay, maybe it's a combination of both. Okay, and with the evolutionary psychology approach, or with just the psychological approach on it, okay, it doesn't spend enough time on how we obviously learn over time and how we build concepts and understanding of the world around us. It's like, oh, everything's inherited. Okay, all of our abilities, all of our traits is inherited. The way we communicate, our personality, right? It has nothing to do with our understanding and learning and cognitively developing our minds over time. which we all know. Like obviously, if we practice something for a long period of time, if we read more, if we understand different types of information, okay, obviously we grow our minds to become more welcome of information and just kind of better ourselves to survive in an environment, right? Other than just picking these traits up and just understanding it's just not we're born with everything. There is a nurture aspect to it. All right, so genetics and inheritance. So two categories we're going to talk about: genotype and phenotype. All right, so real quick, genotypes in organisms, genetic makeup. Okay, it's the blueprint for what an organism is. Phenotype, an organism's physical characteristics. Right, so this includes chemistry and wiring in our brains. So with phenotype, it's an observable appearance, right? It's eye color, it's hair color. So phenotype, I guess you could say it's like a physical characteristic, a physical appearance. That's an easy way to remember it. Phenotype, physical appearance, physical characteristic. So eye color, hair color, you name it. What is that? The bottom left here. What is this? What is it? Punnett square. Yep, good job. All right, so maybe I'll have something like that on a quiz. We all know how that works. Okay, we have a dominant trait, recessive gene. So the dominant trait, recessive trait. And then same thing here. As we move through the square, okay, both dominant, dominant, recessive, and then we have the recessive trait that appears not all the time, not likely, but okay, but it does happen. And with our offspring, obviously, whoever we have a relationship with, recessive traits might actually occur, might happen. I definitely think my brother got some recessive traits because my dad's like 5'8", my mom's 5'5", 5'4", and he's 6'2". It's like, where did this happen? How did this occur? Maybe I always tell him, it's like, oh, they just, they picked the wrong baby up from the hospital when they left. He's like, yeah, okay. All right, so heredity, environment. Okay, so this definitely plays a role too. That evolutionary cycle really doesn't discuss and talk about too much. Obviously, we do inherit traits from our parents. Okay, but definitely the environment plays a role in how we obviously live in our environment. How nutrition plays a role with what we eat. Okay, definitely where we're located in the earth. Okay, especially around the equator. Obviously we might have a different types of diets and complexion, right? Especially compared to people that live towards the poles. So that's one thing evolutionary psych doesn't really talk and touch about too much is how our environment plays a role within our life. Okay, how this maybe creates a being out of what types of diseases are located in that certain part of the part of the world. Okay, what nutrition diets available for us. Okay, how we maybe act and react to certain different types of stress that's located in this certain location or this certain environment. So heredity and environment definitely do play a factor. I think it's interesting. My one friend, he was like always a large guy. He was like 380. He was a D lineman. He was a big guy. And all of a sudden he started losing weight. So his diet changed. So he started eating like grilled chicken all the time. So as he was eating all his grilled chicken, his doctor's like, "Oh, this is awesome. You're losing a lot of weight. You're obviously healthier. Your heart rate's going down. This is awesome. This is great." But he started losing his hair because his diet changed. Like he was eating a lot of junk food, eating pretty unhealthy, and all of a sudden he starts eating just strictly grilled chicken. And he started losing his hair because his body wasn't used to this type of diet. And I thought that was interesting. It's like you started losing your hair from just changing your diet. I didn't really think about it too much, and it was kind of funny. He's like, here I am trying to be healthier. The doctor tells me I have to start eating healthier. Then I start losing my hair. It's like, it is what it is, Clayton. That's funny. Well, Mr. Williard, substitute comes in every now and then. Yeah, his son. Yeah, he's one of my best friends. Yeah, that's funny. All right, so chromosomes and genes. Here you go. We all know 23 pairs of chromosomes. Different animals, different organisms have a different amount. Okay, they don't have the same pairs as us, as us humans. So With that being said, here we go. Carp. I thought that was interesting. Carp has 104. Holy cow! Just to fit, just to swim around and be a bottom feeder. What the heck? What the heck? Do you ever spear any carp?
I've never gone both.
No bow fishing either. It's pretty fun. It's hard because the angle of the water, like obviously when you shoot the arrow, and it's a little tough. But yeah, it's interesting. It's pretty neat. And chromosomes, like, oh, an onion has 16. What? Mosquito has 6. I hate mosquitoes. Hate them. All right, so genes, segment of chromosome encodes and directions for inherited physical and mental characteristics of an organism. So they're represented as words, make up the organism's instruction. And we all know here with DNA, the double helix. Okay, this is a part of DNA. So genes, a segment of chromosome that encodes the directions, inherited physical and mental characteristics of an organism. So they label it as the words. That's a great way to remember it and understand it. Part of DNA. Chromosomes, thread-like structures consisting mostly of DNA, along which the genes are organized. So chromosomes are like strings of words coding a sentence. And here we are with our pairs. Okay, 23 pairs. And we know the last one, the XY. So if it's XY, what is it, male or female? Sarah?
If it's X, it's female. X, Y.
Good job, you got it. So that last pair of chromosomes, chromosome, it details if you're male or female. So Y, male. If it was double X, it is female. There we go. Cool stuff. Cool stuff. All right, so that's all I wanted to go through today, and we already did debate the future. We read the article. We talked about how, with the genes and if you can manipulate it or not. But I had to go through that. I know it's a review for many of you what genes, phenotype, genotype are, and chromosomes, but I had to go through it, make sure we cover it. Tomorrow, like I said, we're going to start going over the neuron. Many of you maybe already know what a neuron is, how it fires, some different parts and functions of it, but maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. So we'll go over that tomorrow. Fun stuff. Any questions at all? We good? All right. I'll have that grade in for you then for Gene Genies.
Are we doing a bell ring?
Oh, that's right. Yes. Oh, I just got rid of the video. How about I just put it up for you guys?
Do we have homework?
No, we don't. Nope. So here's the bell ringer for today. Describe the challenge between nurture versus nature in psychology. I should have put with evolutionary psychology, but that's okay. There we go. What's the debate? What's the talk? What's the challenge here with that? Oh, I actually do have the video going yet, so we are good. So bell ringer. There it is. What? Oh, okay. So nature versus nurture will go over tomorrow. Sound good? Sorry about that. Just want to make sure you had the bell ringer. Okay. See you guys. Have a good one. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.